Oh, Thomas, 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 that you would have just believed. Have you ever heard a sermon like that? Maybe once or twice in the years of coming to church. I think that perhaps one of the things that's almost as reliable as Easter is this idea that the week after Easter we all join together and chastise and criticize in judgment poor disciple Thomas. You see, there are some people who have done studies, anthropological and theological studies, all big words about faith in human beings, that says that we have a bad habit of scapegoating. And that we have built into our religious structure the idea of scapegoating goes all the way back to the Day of Atonement in the Jewish history, in the Jewish faith, when they would place all of the sins of all of the people on a single goat and then drive it out into the wilderness, never to be seen again. Pastor, author, and theologian Brian Zahn describes it as a virus passed from host to host. It's how the devil stays alive. The devil doesn't care who you blame as long as you blame. And so we all kind of gather every year to place a little bit of blame on Thomas and make ourselves communally feel a little bit better about ourselves. But I wonder, is Thomas somehow unique or alone? If we're honest, we have to look at the story that we've been telling over the last few weeks. And the women on resurrection morning thought that they had moved Jesus' body. The disciples, upon hearing the word from the women, says that they didn't believe, but ran to the tomb to see. The disciples on the road to Emmaus, accounting to Jesus the story of his own death. And the disciples who were just now in our reading locked away in a private room for fear of the Jews, that being the religious leaders. If they had believed, they would have been exhibiting the courageous faith that they had later in their lives to face persecution and even horrible death. But at this point, they didn't believe until Jesus showed up, and what did he do for them? Showed them his hands and his side. And so this idea of scapegoating seems to be an artifact, if you will, of old-time religion, built into our traditions from generation to generation. This idea of scapegoating, again from Zahn, says the majority is almost always wrong, the crowd is untruth, and scapegoating is demonic. But we do it, and we build it into our religion. We like to place the blame on a single person or group of people and drive them out. We do it generation after generation. Because I think that we are hoping that we can assure ourselves that we, thank God, are not like Thomas. This year, as I was reading the reading, and this year, as I was praying over it, and considering the context in which I am ministering, I am seeing Thomas in the illumination of another light. Thomas seems to be struggling when everyone else is singing. He comes into the room and everybody else is singing because they have seen the risen Lord. But Thomas is still struggling. Thomas isn't less than the others. He isn't somehow like we make him out to be year after year less than the other disciples. He just hasn't caught up yet. He hasn't had his moment with Jesus to see the holes in his hands and his side like the others did. And I think in this way, perhaps Thomas becomes a bit of an everyman for all of us, especially for those who may be struggling while everyone else is singing. You see, I know with great confidence that last week, while all of us were celebrating the resurrection of the Lord, there were probably some that it was just like any other Sunday and they were just going through the motions, hoping against hope that they would feel fear. In a group our size, invariably there are those who would be struggling with any number of things. You can't have a group gathered this big that wouldn't be struggling with something and just showing up on Sunday. I sense that this is true of probably almost any group, anywhere. Recent studies into introverts and extroverts, into melancholy and choleric personalities, show us that there are always those who just haven't caught up with the crowd, who might not be singing for joy, even though they're in the presence of those who are singing for joy. It's been true throughout history. There are those, like Thomas, who struggle when everyone else is singing. And yet, doubt and struggle seems to be an essential part of our faith. Fyodor Dostoevsky says, "It is not as a child that I believe and confess Jesus Christ. My Hosanna is born of a furnace of doubt." Rachel Held Evans, who we just heard from earlier, says, "It will bother you off and on like a rock in your shoe, or it will lodge itself beneath your skin like a splinter." The disciples in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 28, it says, when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And the father of the mute and tormented child in Mark 9 says, "Lord, I believe, help my unbelief." Again, Zahn says, please don't fall into the neurotic trap of thinking that thinking doubt invalidates your faith. It doesn't. Doubt and struggle does not invalidate your faith. Say that again. Doubt and struggle does not invalidate your faith. And unfortunately, we have this unfortunate, though well-intentioned habit of wounding the doubters among us. You see, we kind of embody this herd mentality of wanting to weed out the weak. We are instinctively uncomfortable with grief, and doubt can feel like grief. We have morphed our faith into simply affirming a set of propositions. So we turn our faith into a set of facts that we have to give consent to. And yet, one of ancient church doctors, Origen, says, "For if our books induced men to believe because they were composed either by rhetorical arts or by the wisdom of philosophy, then undoubtedly our faith would be considered to be based on the art of words and on human wisdom, and not upon the power of God." In our modern post-Enlightenment era, we insist on answering everything. All the questions must be answered, and those answers must be adhered to, or else there will be mob wrath. Scapegoat. Just consider what we do to people who dare to doubt and ask difficult questions. People like, just to throw out a few names in recent years, Rob Bell, Rachel Held Evans, and Jen Hatmaker. All theologians, bloggers, one pastor, crucified because of scapegoating, as we like to go against the doubters. And if we're honest, we say unintentionally hurtful things to those who struggle and doubt. Sometimes we say things like, "Get over it," or "Move on." Unfortunately, this diminishes and dismisses altogether the growth and healing process. It communicates to them that we don't care about their struggle. It harms them and it harms us by dismissing the process through which we might learn something new. Sometimes we even question their faith, or even call them heretics and troublemakers. This may be revealing the shallowness or doubt in our own faith, as we are afraid to engage other doubters. It's downright hurtful and mean. It's born of hubris, pride, and selfishness. It diminishes God and reduces his sovereignty and love, as we say that there is no room for doubt or struggle. But God's sovereignty and love is big enough to include doubt and struggle. And as we look at this story, Jesus doesn't come after Thomas or his doubt in this way. He doesn't tell him to get over it. He doesn't tell him to move on. He doesn't tell him just to have more faith, does he? But Jesus speaks a double blessing. He blesses Thomas. He offers his hands and his side. He says, you're blessed because you see. And then the double part of the blessing is he says those who will not see will be even more blessed. Jesus welcomes Thomas' struggle and doubt, as he welcomes our struggle and doubt too. He says, come and touch the wounds. Physically touch them. Exist in the presence of his wounded hands, feet, and side. Jesus is not afraid to bring you close when you are struggling. As a matter of fact, if you are struggling, you may not experience it, but he probably is holding you very, very close. Jesus didn't ask Thomas to hide his struggle and doubt. He speaks to it in the fellowship of the other disciples. He didn't take him aside. He embraced him and welcomed him in the presence of the other disciples. He handles it gently and genuinely without patronizing or dismissing him. And Jesus opens the door that leads to faith and joy. And so should we. Jesus says, do not doubt, but believe. Jesus invites him into belief, invites him into faith, and encourages him. And Thomas answered with joyful testimony, didn't he? My Lord and my God. Can you hear the joy in those words when he realizes that the one standing before him, welcoming him, is his Lord and his God? So how do we respond to our doubt and struggle? What do we do? I think there is great perspective in this sonnet, and if you will indulge me, Malcolm Guite, I'm probably slaughtering his last name, I'm sorry, Malcolm, says these beautiful words about Thomas. We do not know. How can we know the way? Courageous master of the awkward question, you spoke the truth that others dared not say, and cut through their evasion and abstraction. O doubting Thomas, father of my faith, you put your finger on the nub of things. We cannot love some disembodied wraith, but flesh and blood must be our King of Kings. Your teaching is to touch, embrace, anoint. Feel after him and find him in the flesh, because he loved your awkward counterpoint. The word has heard and granted you your wish. O place my hand with yours, help me divine the wounded God, whose wounds are healing mine. We respond by recognizing the importance of doubt and struggle to our faith. We also respond by walking alongside others on that pilgrim journey of struggle, like Jesus walked alongside the disciples on the road to Emmaus. Again, Rachel Held Evans says, there is nothing nominal or lukewarm or indifferent about standing in this hurricane of questions every day and staring each one down until you've mustered all the bravery and fortitude and trust it takes to whisper just one of them out loud. And if you're lucky, someone will recognize the bravery of this act. If you're lucky, there will be a moment of holy silence before someone answers. But if you're not, if the question gets answered too quickly, or if the silence goes on too long, please know that you are not alone. There are other people singing words to hymns that they're not sure that they believe today. Other people just showing up today, and sometimes just showing up, burial spices in hand, is all it takes to witness a miracle. Do you hear that underlying courage in the doubt and struggle? There is another part of the story. of the gospel story where Thomas displays great courage. In John 11, let us also go that we may die with him. Let us also go that we may die with him. Thomas said this to the disciples when Jesus said that he was going back to Jerusalem to see his dead friend Lazarus, knowing that they were seeking to kill Jesus. So the doubting disciple that we chastise every year, sometimes we forget that he said, let us also go that we may die with him. And so embracing doubt while trusting the joyful miracle, that's our sending, that's our purpose here today. Though some of us may be struggling with doubt, let us trust in that joyful miracle. Because you see, we do know for sure that the eternal Son stepped down from heaven and right into the middle of our struggle. Jesus lived, he died, and lives again. He paid our debt and he leads the way. You see, when love came to town, it came in flesh. When love came to town, it conquered even death. And in the words from two of the songs of some of my favorite musicians, maybe some of you didn't know that some of their songs are very faithful. U2 says, I was there when they crucified my Lord. I held the scabbard when the soldier drew his sword. I threw the dice when they pierced his side. But I've seen love conquer the great divide. The stone, it has been moved. The grave is now a groove. All debts are removed. Oh, can't you see what love has done? That's my prayer for anyone who is struggling, and anyone who comes alongside a brother or sister who is struggling. Oh, can't you see what love has done? And we'll walk together until we all see it. In Jesus' name.